no fear in love, but perfect love casts out all fear. And you think about everything that I've described up to this point, how God trusts us with His very best because He wants to reveal riches in us, how He loves us, He doesn't want to overwhelm us with too much, He gives us what we can handle. All of this whole thing is existing, basically, to show what's tucked away inside of us. It's for our benefit because God loves us. Now think about that third servant who fears that God. The servant doesn't see what the master saw in him. The master sees a servant who is capable of putting the resource to work, but the servant sees himself as less than. If you choose to view yourself as less than someone else, or less than even the way God sees you, you basically give yourself permission to secretly envy others or even hate others. If you think about Cain slaying Abel, he was envious. He saw himself as less than. I am less than my brother. So we're into the second fear now, because he sees himself as less than. I am less than. Maybe he starts to look around and he says, you know, this guy over here got 5 talents. That guy got 2. And the master only gave me 1. Who is this master? And think about what he says about God. Listen to what he says about God. He gives a reason why he fears the master. He says, you're a hard man. You take what isn't yours. You reap where you've never planted. You harvest where you've never put any seeds. In other words, he's saying, God, you're a cutthroat businessman. I'm not messing with anything that you give me. I'm not going to do anything with what you give me. I'm going to tuck it away because you're a cutthroat man. I'm going to bury it. Here, you know, he comes back. Here's what's yours. I'm giving you back what's yours. You can have it. Keep it. I don't have the stomach to mess with it. Is it any wonder that the master actually tosses him from the kingdom? Is it any wonder that that's what the master does, tosses him out? You know, he says to him, okay, and this comes through in the Greek and not so much in the translation we read, but the master says to him, you say I'm a hard man? Think about it. This is God saying, you know, you say I'm a hard God? You say that I make money off of people, that I take advantage of other people? Is that really what you think about me? You would dare say that? If that's the case, if you really believe that was true, then you should have at least put the money in the bank and made an investment. Now understand this. This is so important. In Jesus' day, a person who was a banker, typically, and they made their money off interest, off other people, first of all, that's illegal in the book of Deuteronomy. It's against God's laws to do that. So his listeners knew that. We don't know that because it's perfectly normal for creditors to make, charge 15% interest on people today. But in that day in particular, if you made your money as a banker making interest off of other people, you were basically seen as a person that took advantage of other people's poverty. So when we read those verses again, we see God say something like this. He says, you think I'm a terrible master? You think that I take advantage of people? Is that really what you think about me? If I'm such a despicable God and such a despicable master, then the very least you should have done was gone out and taken advantage of poor people. If that's who you really think I am, and I'm your master, you should have gone and taken advantage of poor people. You should have invested that money. But you couldn't even do that. And the reason why you didn't go take advantage of poor people and make money off interest is the same reason that you didn't invest the resource. It has nothing to do with me. It has to do with the fact that you're lazy. You are a lazy bum. This isn't about me, God would say. This is about you. Now, pack your bags. Get out of my kingdom. Hard words, but understandable. Because you see, the master had given everything that the third servant needed to be successful, and he didn't do a good job with it. He didn't do a bad job with it. He did nothing with it. And I believe that, honestly, I mean, given what we see about the Master and how he divides up resources according to the ability, he's trying to love and he's trying to reveal the specialization, the ability in his servants. I honestly believe the Master would have accepted failure, because that's the picture of God that Jesus paints. If the man had bothered to try, if he'd gone out and tried, and if he had failed, I think the Master would have accepted him, because I don't think that God holds this big score sheet up in heaven about, he's not keeping tally marks about whether or not you fail or succeed. But I do think he notices when we try, or when we fail to even try. The only thing worse than trying and failing is not trying at all. And then the only thing worse than not trying at all is to sit on your butt and then blame somebody else for you not doing anything. And that's what this guy did. When you refuse to try, when you don't do anything and you blame somebody else for your own apathy, then you're dragging two people into the muck. So it's understandable. God says, "Nuh-uh, we'll have none of that in my kingdom. Let me show you the door." It's a hardline stance that God takes. And if that was the only picture we had of God, we could maybe scratch our heads and say, "Ooh, God's kind of mean." But we have the other side too. And both sides are very important. You can't really have one without the other. So let me close up. I know you all have been very patient. God is the source. He gives us all his resources to manage. He wants us to multiply these resources. Not because God needs more. You with me? It's not that God needs more money. It's not that God needs more of anything. He has everything already. But because when we multiply these resources, in multiplying them, it shows a richness and reveals a richness inside of us. When we agree to use God's resources, the things that he gives us, and he gives us according to our abilities, if we agree to use these things in exchange with each other and with our community, we begin to specialize. And as we specialize, each of us specializes, all our boats are raised. Okay? The tide comes up. We create spiritual prosperity. Our own abilities and our specializations get better and better and better. Now, that may just seem like way up here in space, heady, whatever. How does it apply? Think about it this way for just a minute. High Places Community Church puts God's resources to work. All right? If you don't look at our budget, I'll tell you our budget real quick. Number one, we employ 2 pastors. We hire 2 pastors, Martin and myself. Your pastors practice the gift of exchange with one another. Martin and I exchange in many ways. Kind of like Oz and Adam with the spears and the axes. We're each better at doing different things. We're very different, Martin and I are. We're also very specialized in what we do. Martin and I have been pastors for so long that we almost know what the other one is going to be better at taking care of. And we almost operate without even thinking at this point. We've been doing this together for so long. He's able to specialize in what he does really well. He's a very personal person. He's a very emotional, loving, gregarious, extroverted kind of person. And the more opportunities that he has to do those kind of things, the better he gets at that. I'm not. I'm kind of more of the contemplative soul, and the more opportunity I have to develop that specialization, the better I get at it. And so we complement each other in that way. Think about it this way. This building, the Grove Theater, is a resource, and it serves a highly specialized need in our community. So we outsource the resource of this building. We give this building away to groups that need space, particularly art groups that need space. We don't charge them, they just come in and use it. We're maximizing their potential in doing that. So this resource of a building is specialized in the way that we use it. Think about it that way. Think about all the untapped resources that we have in our church. We have many. In front of me here is Katie Markoff. Katie is a specialized worker with children. She has experience doing children's ministry. She feels a calling to children's, a children's pastor position. That's an untapped resource. We want to be able to resource her ability, to put resources in her ability to do that, to work with children so she can further specialize in her gifts that God's given her. There's this old Japanese proverb that says, you don't wait until you're thirsty to build a well. Church, we cannot wait until we have 50 kids to have a children's pastor.